So, it's about to be a pretty serious discussion when I don't open this video with my usual intro with the music and some camera tricks. Give me this moment for a second to just explain something that's important to me and to this channel. If you're not interested in watching this at all, feel free to skip this part. I will not be offended. If you've been following me on Instagram, you had probably noticed by now I had put up some KC Highlights lights on the Jeep. And some of you on Instagram have asked, well, what happened to Lightforce? About a few months ago, they shut down the USA operations and moved all of that to Australia. And since then, communication has gone somewhat silent. And I won't speculate on why they just stopped responding to me, but that's exactly what happened. And in that time that the communication was silent, I got approached by a company called Nomadist. Nomadist is a website that is geared to selling the most premium brands in this space, one being KC Hilites. And they asked if I wanted to be one of the first few sponsored channels that they were bringing on board. And to be honest, at first I told them no. I said I am already with Lightforce, and I'm the kind of guy that believes in integrity, that if I work with a specific company, for as long as they'll have me, and for as long as I'm happy with the product and the open line of communication is there, I will continue to work with that company and promote them as best as I could. But Nomana said, well, give it some thought, because working with us means you get to work with people in this community within the United States, and obviously their presence is known. Who doesn't know KC Hilites, right? And I tried to reach out to Lightforce during that time and still got nothing. And so I contacted Nomadist back and I said, okay, put me on. Does that mean that I have any ill will against Lightforce? Absolutely not. Like Lightforce, I couldn't even begin to thank them for the opportunities that they opened for me. But sometimes relationships have to come to an end. I did send a letter to Lightforce letting them know of this decision and how hard of a decision it was. If you've watched this channel, then you'll know that I did everything I could to champion Lightforce as best as I can. But with the way the market has somewhat shifted, I have to be able to adapt to that. But I did just want to end this by giving a huge and very sincere thank you to Lightforce for all they've done for this channel, for the products that I've been able to rock. Like, it's been an honor creating content for you guys. And truly, I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck and continued success in your respective market. But yeah, that's it. That's the talk. Moving on to the video. Most times on this channel, I'll be asked to review a product and a company will send me that product and I do what it is that I do with them. But there are a few times where a company will sponsor me and then just numerous boxes show up at my house. And when you open it, it literally feels like Christmas morning. And here in front of me is basically my conversion to KC Hilites. Now, I do want to make a quick clarification that technically I am not sponsored by KC Hilites directly. I'm actually sponsored by a startup company called Nomadist. And if you haven't heard of Nomadist yet, don't worry, you eventually will, because they are posed to take over this market. They are a website that's going to be offering nothing but the most premium of products, such as KC. And they also want it to be a lifestyle website where you can go on there and there's going to be articles you can read, reviews you can take a look at. They want to be like the one-stop shop, the hub, if you will, that you can go to for basically all of your off-road and overlanding needs, and only getting you pretty much the best of the best that's in the market today. But don't get it twisted, because Nomadist and KC pretty much go together like, I don't know, spam and eggs. It's the perfect metaphor. They know how I feel about some spam and eggs. This is going to be a 3-part series. Part 3 is going to be the gravity headlights, which I have been wanting these forever because I really want a good pair of headlights. Those are the lights we are using all the time, on-road, off-road, and I've been wanting something that is reliable, something that is bright and is comfortable on the eyes, and this will fit the ticket. So I'm so glad to have these. Part 2 is going to be the Slimline 8s. These are the newest lights that KC just came out with. I'm actually shocked that they sent me a pair, and these will be basically on my bumper, and I'm very excited about that and seeing what kind of output this thing throws because not many people have this one yet. But in this video, we're going to start with the classic, the very well-known Pro6 LED light bar. This thing is insane. It's going to give you a crazy amount of light, but not in a way that's blinding or obnoxious. KC Hilites, and if I'm keeping it a buck, Lightforce too, what drew me to their companies was the fact that they really have their color temp down to a science. And if you don't think color temp matters, go buy knockoffs of these on Amazon. Run those on the trail for like a couple hours, and you'll realize soon enough why you should have just spent for the right kind of lights, because those knockoffs, cheaper lights, they're just throwing white light wherever it pleases. There's hot spots all over the place, and after you've been driving in the dark for like a couple hours with nothing but your off-road lights on, it's going to start to fatigue your eyes and you're going to be super annoyed. Now, what made the Pro6 light bar pretty revolutionary when it first came out, and honestly still really revolutionary today, is that it gives you the option to flex these lights. Meaning that if you don't want your lights just kind of shooting straight forward and you kind of want to illuminate the entire area, there are hinges in between these lights, and if you loosen it, you can kind of bow it out a little bit, and now you can shine lights to your side and to the front. That is definitely a feature that I cannot wait to play around with. Once I get these on, then I can do some adjustments to see how I kind of like it, or I might just want it to shoot straight down. I'm also waiting on some amber covers that I'm going to put on the ends, or maybe they'll be in the middle. I'm going to play around with that too to see what kind of configuration I like there as well. The Pro6 LED light bar weighs in at 15 pounds, which is a lot lighter than I imagined it to be. Anytime I saw these on people's rigs, I thought those must be heavy. They're not. 15 pounds, not bad at all. And as far as waterproofing, it is IP68 rated. Also, beam pattern is combo, beam distance 385 meters, light color is white, light temperature is 5,000 kelvins. That is like 5,000 to about 5,200 are great color temperatures with lights. So even if you don't get this particular light, if you're shopping for lights, always look for something between 5,000 to about 5,200 kelvins, because that'll give you, it basically mimics daylight. Now this thing has a total of 7,524 lumens with 2,794 lux. And then finally, wattage is 64.08 watts, voltage 9 volts to 36 volts, amp draw 1.78 amps. You're probably looking at this going, wait, if you're installing this on a Jeep JK, then where are those humongous brackets that you got to put on the ends to hold this thing up with? And if I'm being honest, that's what turned me off about these lights when they first came out, was that you would have to get these huge A-pillar brackets, and I didn't want to clutter the look of the Jeep even more with these like humongous brackets on each side. Well, we don't have to use those brackets anymore if you own a Front Runner roof rack. I have the Front Runner Slimline 2 rack, and Front Runner has a LED light bar mount kit that works seamlessly with the KC Hilites Pro6 LED light bar. It's going to look super clean, no huge brackets. It's just going to be up there, all nice and neat. So let's get this thing on. So the great thing about the Front Runner Slimline 2 rack is the rail system for accessories. So here I'm just attaching the nuts and bolts, but loosely. Then all I have to do is place these brackets onto the rail and slide them into position. Now back to the light itself, I'm attaching the dampener to the middle of the light bar. This will need a lot of adjustment later, so I'm keeping these loose as well. Because I'm installing this light bar by myself, I don't want to risk dropping it or having it crash down onto my hood or windshield, so I'm using some ratchet straps to keep it suspended. This allows me to line up the light bar onto the brackets on each end easily. Once the bolts are in place, I can now adjust the tilt and tighten it down. Now the dampener needs to sit flush on the front of the rack, but it's also longer than the brackets, so you have to bow the light bar a tad in order for it to fit. Once you have it sitting flush, you can make adjustments on how much you want it to bow out, then go ahead and tighten it down along with everything else. Now the Pro6 light bar has connectors on each end, which is great because it allows you to choose which side you want to run the wire. I chose the side closest to my switch pod box. They also give you a cap to cover the other end that you're not using. For wiring, I only need the positive and negative wires coming out of the light, so I cut the wiring harness right before the relay and discarded the rest. Then I attached ring terminals to the positive and negative wires so I can screw it into my switch pod box. Now I don't know if KC has a pre-made wiring harness for those of us that run switch pods, but that would be ideal so we don't have to modify the harness and waste the parts we don't need like the relay, switches, and fuses. Now with the harness modified, I just screwed it into my switch pod, and all that's left is to test if the light bar lights up. The Gravity Pro6 LED light bar. Yeah, it's pretty nice, right? I mean, it changes up the entire look of the Jeep, and it surprised me just how bright that thing is and how much power it puts out and what it basically can illuminate in front of you. And the way they control that light is just phenomenal. But outside of the light output, what also really impressed me were some of the smaller details that you don't think someone would think about, and yet someone at KC thought about it and had the wherewithal to actually implement it into their design. For example, on each end of the light bar, there's a connector there. So you can choose which side you want to plug your wiring harness into, and then they give you a cap to cover up the other side. Why that's important is you have to run this wire down your A-pillar, and sometimes if you look at other light bars, the wiring is coming out of one end, but yet your power source might be on the other end. So now you got to run a wire behind the entire light bar, then down the A-pillar and into your power source. Whereas this, you choose which side you want to plug into, run it down the A-pillar, straight into your power source, and you're good. There's not like a whole mess of wires. It's even worse when some light bars have the wiring harness coming out of the middle, because now you kind of have this thing that's drooping below your light bar, and it looks a little messy. This just gives it such a cleaner design. As far as install, it's pretty simple, especially with the front runner brackets. Like, it just makes it look a lot cleaner without having those humongous brackets on each side. For the wiring, that's simple as well. It's just a matter of taking the positive and negative and plugging it into the switch pod. If you don't have a switch pod, you are going to need the entire wiring harness. Get a switch pod. It makes like installing lights and auxiliary so much easier. Now, as far as coverage, when I first turned on the switch, it only lit up like maybe 10 feet in front of me. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. It's supposed to give me like full coverage. And it turns out that even if I only had the light just slightly turned downwards, that was enough to just bring the light too close to the vehicle and not give you that spread. And after talking with people who run the Pro6, they said you want to start with the lights basically being 90 degrees with the ground. Like, it needs to point straight forward, not kind of slightly down. Start with that. Go run it around for a while, then see where you want it to be. You have to do some fine tuning, and also fine tuning with the bowing of it to basically get the coverage that you want it to be at. So just be ready to do a lot of fine tuning and adjustments until you get the light to be just right. Speaking of bowing, I know a lot of you are going to have questions on how you control how much of a bow this thing is going to have. This kit comes with a dampener that you put behind the light bar, like dead in the middle. And by adjusting that, you can get like the bowing that you need. That dampener serves that purpose, but it also serves in kind of securing your light bar to the rack, because that dampener sits flush on the face of your roof rack, and it keeps the light bar from like vibrating, and weirdly enough, it also cuts down on the wind noise. So you do need to add that. My thing was, when I first installed this, I wanted this light bar to be like fully flat with like no bowing at all. I wanted it to be like my other light bars where it's just pointing straight forward. And when I tried to put the dampener back there in that configuration, it just wouldn't fit, like, because the dampener is a little bit wider compared to the brackets that are at the ends of this thing. And so in order for me to get that dampener to fit in there, I had to bow out the light bar a tad. But when I did that, when I finally got it to fit, it really didn't bow out as much as I thought it was going to, because I just don't want this like rounded thing in front of my rack. I wanted it to be somewhat still kind of flat. But the thing is this, the Pro6 is meant to bow out. Like, that's the whole purpose of why you would buy the Pro6 versus just a regular LED light bar that points straight forward. The ability for you to kind of adjust this light so that it gives you the most maximum coverage is why the Pro6 has the price tag that it does, and why it is also coveted by so many people, because it gives you those kind of adjustments. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this video. This is only part one of like a 3-part, maybe 4-part series, depending on what other products come in from Nomadist and KC in the next couple of weeks. I do want to thank Nomadist for trusting in this channel to be one of the first few channels that they're sponsoring. Go check them out, nomadist.com, and also nomadist.inc on Instagram. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you smash, actually don't smash, convert that like button to a different kind of like button. Subscribe to our channel. Click that notification bell so we can let you be aware of new videos when they come out. And if it moves you, support us on Patreon. It gives you access to all of our videos before everyone else, and gives you access to our live streams when we do them. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time.